Kevin Harrison sat in the cold negotiation chamber and watched the aliens across the table adjust their environmental suits. The Galactic Empire's representatives moved with the slow confidence of beings who had never lost a war. 3 weeks had passed since the human delegation arrived at the neutral station, and the talks had become nothing but a waste of time. The room itself was built for intimidation. The walls were smooth and dark, reflecting light that came from nowhere. The table stretched long enough to seat 50 beings, but only a handful of them were here. Supreme Coordinator Zelrath sat at the far end, a creature that looked like crystalline rock shaped into something alive. 2 smaller beings flanked the Coordinator, their forms hidden inside technological suits that hissed and clicked with every movement. Kevin had brought 3 people with him to these talks. Dr. Patricia Wells sat to his right. She was the head of Earth's Science Division and had spent the last week listening to the Empire explain why human technology was primitive and useless. Commander Chris Mitchell sat to his left. The military commander had come to listen and to learn what threats the Empire posed to Earth's security. For 3 weeks, Kevin had tried to be reasonable. He had offered trade agreements. The Empire had rejected them as insulting. He had proposed cultural exchanges and the sharing of scientific knowledge. The Empire had laughed through translation devices, a sound like breaking glass mixed with something organic and wet. He had suggested joint exploration of unclaimed space and mutual defense agreements. Each proposal had been treated worse than the last. On day 15, Zelrath had made the Empire's position clear. Earth was a young species. Earth had a single world and limited resources. Earth's military was insignificant compared to the Imperial fleet. Therefore, Earth must accept its place in the galactic hierarchy. That place was at the bottom. Kevin had tried to explain that Earth wanted partnership, not subordination. Zelrath had responded by making demands. The Empire wanted 40% of Earth's territory. They wanted direct control over Earth's mining operations and the rights to all rare minerals discovered on the planet. They wanted access to Earth's genetic research. They wanted military bases on Earth. They wanted the right to post Imperial governors in Earth's major cities to ensure compliance with Imperial law. In exchange, Earth would receive protection from the Empire's military. Earth would be allowed to continue existing as long as it followed Imperial rules. Earth would be considered an Imperial province, no different from dozens of other worlds that had been conquered or broken in the past. Kevin had said no to all of it. Zelrath had simply smiled. In whatever way his crystalline face could smile. The Coordinator had explained that Earth's refusal was amusing. Humans were emotional creatures. They did not understand how power worked. They did not understand that the Empire had more weapons, more ships, more soldiers. The Empire would give Earth 1 more day to reconsider. After that, Earth could accept the terms, or Earth could suffer the consequences. That 1 more day had ended this morning. Kevin pushed his chair back from the table. The sound of the chair scraping across the floor was loud in the quiet chamber. Patricia and Chris immediately began gathering their documents. They had planned this moment during every break in the talks over the past week. They had discussed what they would do if the Empire made an ultimatum. The answer had always been the same. Zelrath's form rippled. The Coordinator had clearly not expected this. For 3 centuries, the Galactic Empire had made demands, and beings had accepted them. The idea that someone would simply get up and leave had not occurred to the Supreme Coordinator. Kevin stood and looked directly at Zelrath. The human was smaller than the Coordinate. His technology was less advanced. His military was weaker. But he was not afraid. "We came here to negotiate as equals," Kevin said. His voice was steady and clear. "We came here hoping to build something together. The Galactic Empire does not want to build anything with Earth. You want to own Earth. You want to take what we have and use it for your own benefit. That is not partnership. That is not friendship. That is conquest." Zelrath did not respond immediately. The coordinator's form darkened, a sign that Patricia's research had identified as the equivalent of anger. "You cannot refuse the Galactic Empire, human," Zelrath said finally. "You are a young species on a single world with limited resources and minimal military power. The Empire has conquered hundreds of worlds. The Empire has defeated dozens of alliances. You think you can survive without Imperial protection? You are foolish." Kevin shook his head. "We will survive because we value freedom more than safety. We will survive because we are willing to die rather than live as slaves. The Empire made a mistake when it treated us as inferior. That mistake is your problem now, not ours." Chris and Patricia finished gathering the documents. They walked toward the exit, moving slowly and with dignity. Kevin took one last look at Zelrath before he turned to follow them. "When the Empire is ready to treat Earth as an equal," Kevin said, "send a message. We will listen then." The chamber's atmosphere shifted as the three humans walked out. Behind them, Zelrath was moving, his form flickering with colors that indicated confusion and rage. The human delegation left the negotiation station exactly 45 minutes later. Their transport ship was small compared to the Empire's vessels, but it was fast. The pilots knew where they were going, and they did not hesitate. Earth's delegation did not look back as they accelerated away from the station. They did not see the Imperial ships that began moving to intercept them. Earth's pilots had prepared for this as well. They jumped to hyperspace before the Imperial vessels could close the distance. Kevin Harrison sat in the observation deck and watched the stars shift. Behind him, Earth's delegation had completed its mission. They had gone to the Galactic Empire seeking peace and partnership. They had found neither. Now they were going home. On his personal communication device, Kevin began typing the message that would change everything. He knew the Empire believed that humans would panic without the Empire's protection. He knew the Empire believed that isolation would break Earth's resolve. The Supreme Coordinator did not understand the kind of species humans were. Earth had survived ice ages and wars and diseases that killed billions. Earth had survived on a world that tried to kill it. Every single day, the Galactic Empire was about to learn that Earth could survive the loss of peace. Talks.Earth could survive anything. Kevin sent the message through secure channels to the allied worlds that had been secretly trading with Earth for the past 5 years. The message was short. Begin Phase 2. The Empire refuses to negotiate as equals. We begin building the alliance. The transport ship continued its journey home through the darkness of space. Kevin Harrison looked at Patricia and Chris. They were not worried. They were not afraid. They were ready. The Galactic Empire had made its choice. Earth had made its choice. Now, they would see which choice had been the wise one. The response to Kevin Harrison's message began 72 hours after Earth's delegation left a neutral station. The first message came from the colony world of Meridian 7, a planet that had been trading with Earth for 3 years. The governor of Meridian 7 was a female named Lyska, a member of the Vreth species whose people mined valuable minerals from their world's crust. Lyska's message was simple and direct. She wanted to know if Earth was serious about creating an alternative to the Galactic Empire. She wanted to know if humans were willing to stand against Imperial power. Most importantly, she wanted to know if Earth could actually survive such a challenge. Kevin responded within hours. He sent Lyska detailed information about Earth's military capabilities. He sent her intelligence about Imperial military positions and weaknesses that Earth scientists had been gathering for months. He sent her the proposal for a genuine alliance where every species maintained its own independence and made decisions together as both. equals. Lyska responded by pledging Meridian. 7 support. The second message came from the independent settlements on the Empire's border. These were worlds that had never been conquered by the Empire, but lived in constant fear of invasion. They were merchant colonies and scientific research stations and agricultural worlds that wanted nothing to do with Imperial control. Kevin sent them the same information. He sent them something more as well, a guarantee that if any of these worlds joined an alliance with Earth, they would have military protection. Earth would stand with them if the Empire tried to bring them under Imperial rule. Within 1 week, 12 independent worlds had agreed to form an alliance with Earth. Back in the Galactic Empire's capital, Supreme Coordinator Zelrath convened an emergency council. The military commander, an Iridian female named Keshta, presented the disturbing information that intelligence agents had gathered. Earth had not returned to the negotiation station to beg for mercy. Earth had not fallen into isolated panic. Instead, Earth was actively building something dangerous. Humans were sending messages throughout the galaxy. They were making contact with worlds that the Empire had been trying to control. They were offering alternatives to Imperial dominance. Keshta stood before Zelrath and the other council members and spoke with clear concern. "The humans are not doing what we expected," she said. "They are not desperate. They are not trying to survive through isolation. They are building an alliance." Zelrath's form flickered with colors that showed doubt and anger. "That is impossible. Humans are a young species. They lack the resources and knowledge to build anything significant. They will fail." "Perhaps," Keshta said carefully, "but we should prepare for the possibility that they will not." More information arrived over the next 2 weeks. Earth scientists had developed hybrid weapons that combined biological and mechanical engineering in ways that were completely unexpected. Earth had established supply lines that stretched across 3 different sectors of space. Earth was creating defensive positions and training allied forces in combat tactics that were unconventional and effective. Zelrath finally accepted that the situation was more serious than he had believed. The Supreme Coordinator called for military mobilization. If Earth wanted to challenge the Empire's authority, the Empire would teach humans what happened to species that refused to submit. The order went out to Imperial fleet commanders. Prepare for military action against the human alliance. The Empire would remind the galaxy why the Galactic Empire held power. The Empire would crush this rebellion before it became a real threat. But something unexpected was happening. As word spread that Earth had formed an alliance and was standing against the Empire, more worlds took courage. More colonies reached out to Kevin Harrison. More independent settlements wanted to join the alliance against Imperial rule. Kevin worked tirelessly to coordinate the growing alliance. He spoke directly with leaders from 30 different worlds. He made promises that Earth would keep: protection, respect, and true partnership. He shared military intelligence and technological knowledge with everyone who wanted to work with Earth. Patricia Wells continued her work on advanced weapon systems. She understood that the Alliance would need military power to survive against the Empire. She worked with scientists from allied worlds to create technologies that combined different species' knowledge and abilities. Chris Mitchell trained commanders from allied military forces. He taught them human combat tactics and strategy. He taught them how smaller forces could defeat larger ones through preparation, coordination, and innovation. Back at the Empire's military headquarters, Keshta watched the intelligence reports and felt something she had not experienced in her long career: uncertainty. The humans were different from other species the Empire had encountered. Humans did not panic under pressure. Humans did not surrender when facing superior force. Humans became more determined the more they were pushed. A new report arrived. 23 worlds had now formally declared alliance with Earth. These worlds were pledging military support. They were sharing resources. They were preparing for conflict. Zilrath called another emergency council. The Supreme Coordinator's form was dark and unstable. The human withdrawal from peace talks had created something the Empire had not anticipated: a unified opposition to imperial power. "We made a mistake," one of the council members said quietly. "We should have treated them as equals from the beginning." Zilrath's response was sharp. "We made no mistake. We demonstrated power as we have always demonstrated power. The humans' response is their error, not ours." But even as Zilrath said this, the Supreme Coordinator knew that the situation had changed. The galaxy was watching to see if the Empire could actually be challenged. The Empire's response would define whether imperial power was absolute or whether it could be resisted. Kevin Harrison sat in Earth's command center and watched the same intelligence reports that the Empire was seeing. He knew that the Empire would strike soon. Supreme Coordinators did not accept challenges to their authority. They responded with military force. Kevin was not afraid. He had made a choice when he walked out of that negotiation chamber. Earth would either stand free or die trying. There was no middle ground. There was no compromise with an empire that only understood submission. The alliance was growing stronger every day. More worlds were joining. More weapons were being built. More ships were being prepared. The Empire had had 3 centuries of unquestioned power. The Alliance had only weeks, but humans had something the Empire did not understand: the ability to accomplish impossible things when they had no choice. When beings faced the choice between freedom and slavery, they could do things that amazed empires. Kevin Harrison transmitted a message to all Alliance commanders: prepare for war. The Empire will not accept this challenge without responding with military force. We are ready. The Galactic Empire was about to learn that underestimating humans was the biggest mistake a civilization could make. The Empire had created this conflict by refusing to treat Earth as an equal. Now the Empire would face the consequences of that refusal. In the darkness of space, preparation was happening everywhere. On one side, an ancient empire with overwhelming firepower and absolute confidence in its superiority. On the other side, a young alliance of diverse species united by the belief that freedom was worth fighting for. The collision between these two forces was coming soon. Neither side knew it yet, but the galaxy was about to change forever. Commander Chris Mitchell stood in Earth's Central Defense Command Center and watched the holographic displays fill with data. Red lights marked Imperial military positions. Green lights showed Allied fleet locations. Blue lines connected supply routes that stretched across space. The room was filled with humans and aliens working together, checking systems and planning strategy. Chris had spent his entire military career preparing for threats. He had trained Earth soldiers in tactics that emphasized adaptation and speed. He had studied wars throughout human history and learned that humans had always been at a disadvantage in direct military strength. Throughout history, humans had survived through innovation and flexibility. Now Chris applied those principles to an entirely new kind of conflict. A breath mining expert named Keshila worked beside Chris, studying the same displays. The breath came from a world where the ground itself was hostile, where minerals had to be extracted from layers of stone that fought back. Keshila's people understood resource management and survival under pressure. Keshila looked at Chris and said, "Your species thinks differently about war than older civilizations. Is this a strength or a weakness?" Chris considered the question. "It is both," he said finally. "The Empire has 3 centuries of experience with military conflict. They have proven tactics and equipment that works. But that also means they think in predictable ways. They expect enemies to behave a certain way. They prepare for known threats. And humans do not behave this way? Keshla asked. Humans do not, Chris confirmed. We survive by doing what others do not expect. We adapt when our original plans fail. We find solutions that no one predicted were possible. Across the facility, Dr. Patricia Wells worked in a separate laboratory with scientists from 5 allied worlds. The lab was filled with equipment that combined different species technologies. Human engineers had worked alongside Talonian specialists to create hybrid weapon systems that incorporated the best ideas from both species. Patricia stood before a new prototype and explained the concept to her international team. The weapon combined human biological processing technology with Talonian mechanical precision. It could adapt its targeting systems in real time, which made it different from Imperial weapons that use fixed programming. Humans understand mutation and adaptation, Patricia explained. Our biology depends on the ability to change when conditions change. We have built this understanding into our weapon systems. They do not just follow a predetermined pattern. They learn and adapt as they are used. A Talonian scientist named Vexier examined the prototype closely. If this technology works, Vexier said slowly, it will change how warfare functions. The Empire relies on overwhelming force and direct confrontation. Your system depends on flexibility and adaptation. That is correct, Patricia said. The Empire's strength is in raw power. Our strength is in innovation. If we can survive the first contact, we have a chance. Kevin Harrison moved through the preparation facilities constantly, checking on progress and speaking with every commander and scientist who had joined the Alliance. He knew that the Empire would attack soon. He also knew that the Alliance would need every advantage it could create. Kevin met with the fleet commanders from allied worlds. These were beings who had chosen to stand with Earth instead of accepting Imperial rule. Some of them had been born under Empire domination and had decided to rebel. Others had maintained independence and were now risking that independence to build something new. Kevin spoke to them about Earth's history. He told them about times when humans had faced overwhelming odds and survived through determination and creativity. He told them about humans who had refused to accept enslavement throughout history. He told them about the human capacity to endure suffering and keep fighting. The Empire believes that power comes from weapons and numbers, Kevin said to the assembled commanders. I am telling you that power also comes from the willingness to fight for something you believe in. Humans have never had the most weapons. We have never had the greatest numbers. But we have always had the determination to survive. This is what the Empire does not understand about us. Chris Mitchell conducted training exercises with allied military forces. Human soldiers worked alongside Wrath warriors and Talonian engineers. They practiced coordinated strikes and defensive maneuvers. They tested new weapon systems and learned how to use them effectively. Chris taught them that timing was more important than force. Coordination was more important than individual strength. Understanding the enemy's patterns was more important than matching their firepower. The Empire expects you to fight them in direct confrontation, Chris explained during a training session. They expect you to send your best warriors and weapons against their best warriors and weapons. They expect you to lose because you are weaker. But what if you do not fight this way? What if you strike at their supply lines instead? What if you attack their communication systems? What if you hit targets they do not expect? The Allied commanders began to understand the human way of thinking about conflict. On Earth itself, Patricia Wells and her team made a breakthrough. They had created a new type of shield generator that incorporated human immune system principles. Just as human bodies learned to defend against pathogens they had encountered before, the new shield generators learned to adapt to repeated attacks. Each time an attack was made against the shield, The shield became stronger at defending against that specific attack. Patricia transmitted the specifications to allied worlds. This technology could change the outcome of battles. If Alliance ships could adapt their defenses to Imperial weapons, while the Empire could not adapt its weapons to Alliance defenses, the advantage shifted dramatically. Kevin watched the progress reports flood in from every allied world. Supply lines were strengthened. Military forces were trained and coordinated. New weapons were being deployed. Defensive systems were being improved. Most importantly, every world involved in the Alliance believed that this conflict could be won. But Kevin also understood something that many others did not. The Empire would not negotiate further. The Empire would not listen to reason. The Empire would respond to Earth's challenge with overwhelming military force. The Alliance had prepared as well as it could in the time available. Now everything depended on what happened in actual combat. Chris Mitchell pulled up the latest intelligence about Imperial military movements. The Empire's fleet was mobilizing. Warships were being ordered to advance positions near allied worlds. The Empire was preparing to strike. How long do we have? Kevin asked Chris. 28 days, Chris replied. The Empire will want to demonstrate power quickly. They will strike at a significant target to show that resistance is futile. We need to be ready. Kevin looked at the displays showing Imperial positions and Allied positions. The moment they had been preparing for was coming. The Galactic Empire had treated Earth with contempt. Now Earth stood with 24 other worlds, ready to prove that the Empire's assumption of superiority was wrong. Patricia Wells and Chris Mitchell and Kevin Harrison had spent their lives preparing in different ways for this moment. Patricia had studied how systems could adapt and change. Chris had studied how to win with less power. Kevin had studied how beings could choose freedom over safety. Now they would see if their preparation had been enough. The Alliance was ready. The Empire did not know what was about to hit them. The humans had spent 3 centuries thinking as individuals and survivors. Now they had the chance to show an ancient empire what survivors could accomplish when they stopped running and started fighting. The first engagement began at Kepler Station on the 31st day after Earth's withdrawal from the negotiation chamber. Kepler Station was not a military facility. It was a deep space hub where traders and explorers refueled their ships and exchanged goods. The station sat on the border between Imperial space and the territories controlled by the Alliance. The Empire had chosen this location deliberately. Attacking the civilian station would send a message. Resistance to the Empire would destroy everything the Alliance valued. The Alliance had expected this move. Chris Mitchell's analysis of Imperial military patterns had predicted that the Empire would strike at a civilian target to create fear. The human commander had prepared a response that the Empire would not expect. When the Imperial battle fleet arrived at Kepler Station, they found only a handful of civilian vessels. The massive military defenses that should have been there were missing. The Empire's commander, a being named Verthan, smiled at what seemed like an easy victory. Verthan ordered the Imperial fleet to move into attack position. Kepler Station was poorly defended. This would be a quick demonstration of Imperial power. Then everything changed. Alliance ships that had been waiting in stealth mode across the sector suddenly activated their drives and accelerated toward the Imperial fleet. The Alliance attack was not aimed at destroying the Imperial warships. Instead, the Alliance ships launched electromagnetic pulse weapons at specific Imperial targets. 3 massive Imperial cruisers suddenly went dark. Their engines shut down. Their weapon systems died. Their communication arrays went silent. The ships drifted helplessly in the darkness of space. The Imperial commander was shocked. This was not how warfare was supposed to work. The beings did not disable the enemy's weapons and then refused to kill the disabled ships. Beings attacked until everything was destroyed. A communication signal opened directly on Verthan's command channel. Chris Mitchell's voice came through clearly. "Your 3 cruisers are disabled," Chris said. "You have 20 minutes to restore their power systems, or we will assume you are hostile. If you are hostile, we will attack. In either case, you will retreat to your borders and not return. These are your only options." Verthan's first response was to call for reinforcements. He ordered his remaining warships to close with the Alliance fleet. He expected that this initial attack was a fluke and that Imperial firepower would easily overwhelm the humans and their allies. The Alliance responded by retreating. They did not engage the Imperial fleet in direct combat. Instead, they pulled back, lured the Imperial ships forward, and attacked again. When the Imperial warships tried to move closer, the Alliance would disable more ships using electromagnetic pulse weapons. The Imperial fleet was being dismantled piece by piece, and they could not stop it. Verthan's reinforcements arrived within hours. More Imperial warships jumped through hyperspace into the battle zone. The commander was furious now. What had started as an easy demonstration had become a growing disaster. The reinforced Imperial fleet numbered 38 warships. The Alliance forces numbered only 18 ships. By any normal calculation, the Empire should have destroyed the Alliance forces in minutes, but the Alliance did not fight normally. Patricia Wells' adaptive weapons systems proved to be the difference. As the Imperial fleet attacked, Alliance ships learned what weapons the Empire was using and adapted their defenses accordingly. Shields that worked against Imperial energy weapons became stronger with each hit. Defensive positions that had proven effective against one attack pattern became even more effective when the Empire repeated the same attack pattern. Meanwhile, human pilots flew with a kind of flexibility that confused the Empire's rigid military tactics. Imperial ships had powerful weapons, but those weapons followed predictable paths. Human pilots anticipated the attack patterns and moved their ships out of the way before the attacks arrived. The Alliance also struck at targets the Empire did not expect. While the Imperial fleet focused on direct combat, Alliance ships attacked the enemy's supply lines and communication arrays. They disabled the ships that were supposed to resupply the fleet. They destroyed the communication stations that allowed the Empire's commanders to coordinate their forces. By day 3 of the battle, the Imperial fleet was losing cohesion. Ships that should have been coordinating with each other could not communicate. Ships that ran out of supplies could not be resupplied. Ships that were damaged could not be repaired because the repair vessels had been disabled. The Alliance took few casualties. When an Alliance ship was damaged, it jumped to hyperspace and fell back to a safe position. The Empire's pride would not allow the same retreat. Imperial commanders were expected to fight until their ships were destroyed. By day 5, the Imperial fleet had lost 12 warships. Another 20 ships were damaged so badly they could barely move. The Alliance forces had lost only 2 ships, and those losses were from miscalculations in strategy, not from superior Imperial firepower. Verthan finally accepted that he had been defeated. The Imperial commander made the decision to retreat, something that had not happened in Imperial military history. The remaining Imperial warships jumped to hyperspace and began the journey back to Imperial space. The battle at Kepler Station was over. Kevin Harrison requested a direct communication link with Supreme Coordinator Zelrath. The connection took hours to establish, but finally, the crystalline form of the Empire's leader appeared on Kevin's communication screen. "You have your explanation now," Kevin said simply. "Your fleet is broken. Your warships are destroyed or disabled. Your alliance is smaller and you are already losing. This is not going to end with the Empire crushing this rebellion. This is going to end with the Empire accepting that it can be resisted." Zelrath's form rippled with colors that showed rage and something else. Disbelief, perhaps. or the first signs of doubt, Kevin continued. The Galactic Empire has always won through superior numbers and firepower. You have never faced an enemy that fights differently. You have never encountered warriors who would sacrifice individual strength for coordinated strategy. You have never fought beings who understand that sometimes the smartest response is to retreat and strike again, instead of standing and dying for pride. Your species got lucky, Zelrath said finally. You will not survive the Empire's full response. Your species made a choice, Kevin corrected. You chose to respond to our withdrawal from negotiations with contempt. You chose to believe that we were inferior. You chose to attack civilian stations to create fear. Those choices created this conflict. Now you face the consequences of those choices. Kevin paused and then made his final statement. The Empire's technology is superior. Your firepower is greater. Your numbers are larger. But you have spent 3 centuries believing that superior technology makes you superior warriors. Humans did not advance by being the strongest. We advanced by being the most adaptable. We survived on a world that tried to kill us every day. We fought each other for millennia and learned how to overcome any obstacle. That is why we are winning this war. That is why the Empire's assumptions are being proven wrong. Kevin closed the communication. The Alliance had won the first battle. The Empire was wounded, perhaps seriously. But Kevin knew that this was only the beginning. The Empire would not accept defeat. The Empire would either escalate the conflict or fundamentally change how it related to the rest of the galaxy. Either way, nothing would be the same again. In celebration halls across Alliance worlds, beings from different species rejoiced together. They had stood against the Galactic Empire and survived. They had proved that the Empire could be beaten. The galaxy would never forget the lesson that Kepler Station had taught. The Empire was not invincible. The withdrawal of Imperial forces took 3 days. Wounded warships limped back across the boundary into Imperial space. The Empire's military commanders sent out orders to all Imperial bases: consolidate positions and prepare for possible Alliance counterattack. For the first time in 3 centuries, the Galactic Empire was acting defensively instead of offensively. News of the battle at Kepler Station spread through the galaxy faster than any starship could travel. Every independent world received the information. Every colony heard what had happened. Every trader and explorer talked about how humans and their allies had defeated the Empire's fleet. The impact was immediate and far-reaching. Worlds that had been contemplating resistance suddenly committed themselves completely to the Alliance. Colony planets that had been enslaved by the Empire for decades began planning rebellions. Independent traders who had been intimidated by Imperial power suddenly refused to pay Imperial tariffs. The Galactic Empire was still the most powerful military force in known space. But the Empire's assumption of invincibility had been shattered. Beings throughout the galaxy now understood that the Empire could be resisted. Kevin Harrison did not give the Alliance time to rest. Within days of the victory at Kepler Station, he began negotiating with the Empire. His terms were simple. The Empire would withdraw from territories it controlled, but did not govern with the consent of the governed. The Empire would open negotiations with the Alliance as equals. The Empire would formally recognize the right of worlds to choose their own path. Supreme Coordinator Zelrath initially rejected all of these demands. The Coordinator insisted that the battle had been an accident, that the Empire's true military strength had not been unleashed, that humans were still insignificant. But the Empire's military leaders knew better. Commander Kashta presented intelligence reports that devastated the Coordinator's confidence. The Alliance's adaptive weapons technology could not be easily defeated. The Alliance's tactical thinking was fundamentally different from military doctrine that the Empire had mastered over centuries. Most importantly, if the Empire attempted another large-scale military offensive, the Alliance would likely win. Zelrath finally faced a choice that no Supreme Coordinator had faced in centuries. The Coordinator could either escalate the conflict and risk the fall of the Empire, or the Coordinator could accept that the Galactic Empire's era of absolute dominance was ending. Zelrath chose negotiation. The new peace talks took place on neutral ground, not at the location where the previous failed negotiations had occurred. This time, the Empire's delegation included multiple coordinators and military commanders. The Empire came prepared to actually listen to the Alliance's terms. Kevin Harrison brought the same people he had brought to the first negotiation. Patricia Wells represented Earth's scientific capabilities. Chris Mitchell represented Earth's military. But now these three humans were not desperate requesters. They were representatives of a military force that had proven itself capable of defeating the Empire. The negotiations lasted 6 weeks. The terms were debated, revised, and finally agreed upon. The Empire would withdraw its occupation forces from 57 worlds. These worlds would be given the choice to join the Empire voluntarily, remain independent, or join the Alliance. The Empire would establish formal trade relationships with the Alliance based on mutual benefit, instead of imperial extraction. Most importantly, the Empire agreed to form a galactic council where the Empire, the Alliance, and other independent powers would share decision-making authority. As the final documents were being signed, Kevin Harrison reflected on how far things had changed. The Galactic Empire that had refused to treat Earth as an equal was now dividing power with humans and their allies. Patricia Wells worked with Imperial scientists in a new collaborative program. The Empire wanted access to the adaptive weapons technology that had proven so effective. Patricia negotiated for technology sharing that benefited both sides. The Empire had weapons technology that was useful to the Alliance. The Alliance had adaptive systems that the Empire needed. Chris Mitchell trained Imperial military commanders in the flexible tactical thinking that had allowed the Alliance to defeat the Empire's fleet. The Empire's rigid military doctrine would need to change if they wanted to remain competitive in a galaxy where they were no longer dominant. Kevin Harrison became the DU, permanent representative to the newly formed Galactic Council. He worked to prevent conflicts between the Empire and the Alliance. He mediated disputes between independent worlds. He helped create rules that allowed different species and different governments to coexist peacefully. 6 months after the battle at Kepler Station, the Galactic Council held its first formal assembly. Every major power in the known galaxy sent representatives. The Empire sent Supreme Coordinator Zelrath himself. The Alliance sent Kevin Harrison, along with representatives from all 23 member worlds. When it came time to vote on the Council's leadership, Kevin Harrison was nominated and elected as the first chair of the Galactic Council. It was an unprecedented honor for a human, for a species that had only recently entered the galaxy. Kevin accepted the position with understanding of its weight. He had been part of a small delegation that had chosen to walk away from an empire's demands. That choice had changed everything. One decision to refuse subservience had led to military conflict, alliance building, and the fundamental restructuring of galactic power. In his acceptance speech, Kevin addressed the Council and all the representatives from every world. "The Galactic Empire is powerful," Kevin said. "But power built only on force and dominance eventually collapses." The Empire could not understand why Earth walked away from negotiations. The Empire could not understand why a young species would refuse to serve. The Empire could not understand that freedom was more important than safety. Kevin looked directly at Zelrath as he continued. "I do not speak these words to shame the Empire. I speak them because the Empire's error was instructive. The Empire treated beings as inferior because they lacked advanced technology or large militaries. But power comes in many forms. Power comes from innovation. Power comes from the willingness to die for what you believe in. Power comes from the ability to inspire others to stand with you. These are the kinds of power that the Empire did not measure. And that is why the Empire lost to a species 1/10 its age. Kevin paused and then made his final statement. The Galactic Council is not the Empire's council. It is the galaxy's council. Every world here has equal voice. Every species here has equal value. We are building something that has never existed before. We are building a galactic government based on cooperation instead of conquest. The voting delegates stood and showed approval. Even the Imperial representatives stood, though perhaps with less enthusiasm than the others thought, as Kevin Harrison walked out of the council chamber that day. He thought about Kevin Harrison, the young ambassador, who had walked out of a negotiation chamber 3 months earlier. That version of himself had been terrified but determined. That version had made a choice that changed history. Humans had entered the galactic stage as a young, unknown species. Through one man's decision to refuse compromise with those who would have enslaved his people, humans had become central to the galaxy's political future. The Galactic Empire had made a mistake when it treated Earth with contempt. The Empire had made a bigger mistake when it believed that contempt could force submission. The Empire had made the biggest mistake when it did not understand that sometimes the most powerful force in the galaxy was the simple, unshakable determination of a species to be free. Kevin Harrison looked out at the stars beyond the council chamber's windows. Earth was out there, his home world where humans had survived impossible odds for millions of years. Those humans had taught their descendants to never surrender, to always adapt, to never accept that they were less than anyone else. Those lessons had just changed the galaxy. The Empire would never be the same. The galaxy would never be the same. Humanity had announced its arrival not with weapons or technology, but with the courage to say no to those who would have owned them. History had been written on the day Kevin Harrison walked out of a negotiation chamber. The rest was simply the galaxy learning to accept what humans had always known about themselves, that they were the product of a world that tried to kill them every day, and they had learned to survive anything